I want you to take a breath right now. A real one, not the shallow kind you've been taking all day while your mind runs through everything you need to do and everywhere you need to be. A real breath, all the way down. And as you let it out, I want you to do something that most people find surprisingly difficult. I want you to let your mind go quiet, just for a moment, just long enough to hear something that has been trying to reach you for a very long time. Because what we are about to do together is not an ordinary test. It is not a quiz designed to put you in a category or assign you a label or tell you something you already know about yourself. What we are about to do goes much deeper than that. We are going to use something that Carl Jung discovered after decades of studying thousands of human minds across dozens of cultures and hundreds of years of recorded human history. We are going to use ancient symbols. And the one you choose today is going to reveal something about your unconscious mind that words have never quite been able to reach before. Carl Jung was without question one of the most brilliant and original thinkers the world has ever produced. He began his career as a student of Sigmund Freud, and Freud believed he had found his successor. But Jung could not stop at what Freud had discovered. His mind kept going deeper, kept asking bigger questions. And the question that consumed him more than any other was this: why do the same symbols appear in the dreams and visions of people who have never met, who live on opposite sides of the world, who speak different languages and come from completely different cultures, and yet produce the same images, the same patterns, the same symbols from the depths of their unconscious minds? A patient in Switzerland would dream of a serpent eating its own tail. A patient in Africa, who had never left his village, would describe the same image. A child in Japan would draw the same spiral that appeared in the stone carvings of ancient Ireland thousands of years before that child was born. Jung documented these patterns obsessively. He could not explain them through personal experience or cultural learning, because the people producing them had no connection to each other. And so, he arrived at one of the most extraordinary discoveries in the history of human psychology. He called it the collective unconscious. Jung said that beneath the personal unconscious, beneath all your individual memories and experiences and wounds and desires, there is a deeper layer, a layer that does not belong to you personally, a layer that belongs to all of us, to every human being who has ever lived. It is a vast, ancient reservoir of shared human experience, shared human wisdom, and shared human symbols that we are all born already carrying inside us. We did not learn these symbols. We did not inherit them from our parents. They are built into us at a level so deep that the conscious mind cannot access them directly. They can only be accessed through instinct, through dreams, through the quiet pull you feel towards certain things without being able to explain why. And today, 6 of those symbols are going to speak to you. But before I show them to you, I need to tell you about something else. Something Jung called the most dangerous and most necessary discovery a human being can make about themselves. He called it the shadow. The shadow is not evil. I want you to hear that clearly, because the word shadow carries connotations that are misleading. The shadow is not the part of you that is bad. The shadow is the part of you that you decided was unacceptable. The part that, at some point in your life, you were taught, directly or indirectly, to put away, to hide, to pretend did not exist. It might be your anger. It might be your ambition. It might be your vulnerability, your neediness, your grief that never ended, your desire for something you were told you should not want. It might be your intelligence, your sensitivity, your creativity. Things we do not normally think of as shadow material, but which become shadow material the moment they are rejected. Jung said, whatever we do not accept in ourselves does not disappear. It goes underground. And from underground, it runs us. It shapes our decisions without our awareness. It determines what we fear, what we desire, what we react to with disproportionate emotion. It drives our patterns and our compulsions and our deepest conflicts in relationships, in work, in the quiet hours when we are alone with ourselves and cannot quite explain why we feel what we feel. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The 6 symbols you are about to encounter are not comfort. They are not reassurance. They are not going to tell you that you are exactly who you think you are and that everything is fine. They are going to tell you the truth. Here is what I need you to do. I am going to show you 6 ancient symbols. I want you to look at each one, and I want you to notice which one creates a feeling inside you. Not a thought, not an analysis. A feeling, a pull, a recognition. Something that says yes without knowing why it is saying yes. That is your unconscious speaking. Trust that feeling completely. Choose the symbol that calls to you first. And then stay with me. Because what that choice reveals is going to be one of the most honest things you have heard about yourself in a very long time. Here are your 6 ancient symbols. The first symbol is the scarab. Picture a beetle, not an ordinary beetle. An ancient one, carved from deep lapis lazuli, a stone the color of the midnight sky shot through with gold. The scarab sits at the center of a medallion, its wings folded perfectly against its body. Each wing edge traced in thin lines of pure gold. Around it, the border of the coin carries hieroglyphs so precise they look as if they were cut this morning, not thousands of years ago. There is something deeply strange about the scarab. It is both humble and cosmic at the same time. It is the smallest of creatures placed at the center of one of the oldest known symbols of renewal in human history. And looking at it now, you may feel something you cannot immediately name, a kind of recognition that has nothing to do with Egypt, nothing to do with anything you have studied, and everything to do with something very old and very personal that lives inside you. The second symbol is the Aegis Jalmer. Picture 8 tridents radiating outward from a single central point, each arm ending in a curved branch that reaches back toward the others, almost like a wheel, but more angular, more deliberate, more armored. It is rendered in dark iron, the surface not polished but textured, as if it has absorbed the weather of centuries. The edges carry a quality of rust and gold, and around its outer edge, Norse runes run in a tight circle, each one carrying meanings that predate the alphabet itself. This is the helm of all. Norse warriors drew it on their foreheads before battle, not with paint, but with their own fingers. They believed it would paralyze their enemies with terror, but there is something in this symbol that goes beyond battle, something that asks a harder question, something that looks at you and waits. The third symbol is the Valknut. Picture 3 triangles interlocked, not stacked or overlapping casually, but interlocked with mathematical precision, each one passing through the others so that it is impossible to say where one ends and another begins. The medallion is carved from obsidian, a black so deep and absolute that it seems to absorb the light around it rather than reflect it. The 3 triangles catch a faint silver edge along each of their lines, the only brightness in all that darkness. This is a symbol of Odin, the god who gave up an eye to gain wisdom, who hung himself on the world tree for 9 days and 9 nights to discover the secret language of the universe. It marks the boundary between one life and the next, between what was and what will be, between who you were and who you are in the process of becoming. The fourth symbol is the Hunab Ku. Picture a circle within a circle. Inside the inner circle, 2 shapes flow against each other in perfect opposition. One dark with white dots scattered across it like stars, one white with dark dots like seeds planted in earth. They are not simply opposite halves. They are flowing, turning, one becoming the other at their shared edge. The disc is carved from jade, deep forest green, and its surface has been smoothed by so many hands over so many generations that it seems almost to be alive under the light. This is a supreme mind symbol of cosmic balance, not the balance of things that are equal and still, but the balance of things that are in constant, necessary movement. The Mayans understood something that Western psychology would not articulate for another 1,000 years, that the self is not a fixed point. It is a process. The fifth symbol is the Hamsa. Picture an open hand, not a gesture, a symbol. The hand is rendered in gold, its proportions slightly unnatural in the way of ancient sacred art. Both thumbs on the outside, the 3 middle fingers perfectly aligned, the palms slightly cupped as if offering something. At the center of the palm, inlaid in turquoise and deep cobalt, is a single eye, open, unblinking, calm. The Hamsa appears in virtually every major culture across the Middle East, North Africa, and South Asia. It belongs to no single religion, and to all of them, it is the hand that protects, but also the hand that sees. The eye at its center does not close. It does not look away. It has been watching over something precious for a very long time. The sixth symbol is the Karoo. Picture a spiral carved in greenstone, a jade-like stone the Maori of New Zealand call Panamu, found only at the bottom of cold rivers and glacial streams. The color is deep, layered green, almost translucent near the edges, more opaque at the center. The shape of the spiral is based on the unfurling of a single silver fern frond, the moment just before it opens fully, when it is still curled inward, holding everything it is about to become inside itself. The Koru does not speak of battles or cosmic forces or eternal cycles. It speaks of a single thing, the moment before becoming, not the becoming itself, the moment just before, when everything that will be is already contained inside what still appears to be closed. Have you chosen? Good. Hold your symbol in your mind. Feel it. And now let us find out what your unconscious has been trying to tell you. If you chose the scarab. The ancient Egyptians watched this small, unremarkable creature and saw something extraordinary. The scarab beetle would gather refuse from the desert floor, compress it into a perfect sphere, and roll it across the sand. To the Egyptians, this was not waste management. This was theology. They watched the scarab move its sphere across the earth, exactly as Ra moved the sun across the sky. They saw in this tiny creature the embodiment of one of the most profound truths they had ever discovered, that the most sacred things in existence sometimes emerge from what has been discarded. Jung encountered this archetype repeatedly in his clinical work. He observed that the people who achieve the deepest and most authentic psychological transformation are almost never the people who begin with advantages. They are almost always the people who take what has been thrown away in their own histories and themselves and find inside it the material for new life. If you chose the scarab today, there is something in your past, a failure that still burns, a version of yourself you abandoned, a dream you buried under the pressure of practicality or other people's expectations, that your psyche has not let go of, not because you are stuck, but because there is something inside that discarded thing that has not been used yet. Jung said that the gold is always in the shadow, the thing we bury, the thing we are most ashamed of, the thing we've been rolling away from ourselves, is almost always the thing that contains the most untransformed energy, the most potential, the most life. The scarab does not mourn the material it works with. It does not wish for something better to work with. It takes exactly what is there, in exactly the condition finds it, and makes from it something that moves the sun. Your unconscious chose the symbol today because some part of you already knows that what you've been calling your burden, your wound, your failure, your most humiliating chapter, is not the obstacle to your becoming. It is the material of it. The question your unconscious is asking is simple and enormous at the same time. What would you build? If you stopped being ashamed of what you were given to work with, if you chose the Aegis Gelmer. Here's the thing that is rarely said about the helm of awe. The warriors who drew it on their foreheads before battle were not fearless. They were terrified. The symbol was not drawn to remove fear. It was drawn to contain it, to take the fear that lived inside them and project it outward, transforming it into something that could be used. Jung spent years studying what he called the armored self, the psychological structure that forms in people who, at some point in their lives, learned that vulnerability was dangerous, not metaphorically dangerous, actually dangerous. These are people who were hurt when they were open, who were exploited when they were soft, who learned, through direct and painful experience, that the world does not always treat an unprotected heart gently. And so they built armor, competence armor, achievement armor, emotional armor, the kind of armor that makes you reliable and self-sufficient and capable of functioning at an extraordinarily high level while feeling, underneath all of it, completely alone. Jung did not pathologize this. He understood it as a deeply intelligent adaptation. The armor works. It protects the most important parts of you from a specific harm that you once experienced. The problem is not the armor itself. The problem is that armor designed for a war that ended years ago tend to keep running, and over time, it begins to separate you not only from harm, but from everything, from intimacy, from the unexpected, from the parts of your own life that require softness to be received. If you chose the Aegis Gelmer today, your unconscious is not asking you to take the armor off. It is asking you a question that the armor has been preventing you from hearing. Who would you be if you chose, deliberately and consciously, when to wear it and when to set it down? The helm of awe was carried into battle by the warrior. It was not worn to bed. The warrior knew the difference. Your unconscious is asking if you still do. If you chose the Valknut, Jung wrote at length about what he called the necessary death, the psychological experience of an ending so complete that the self that existed before it cannot survive intact. He was careful to distinguish this from grief, from ordinary loss. Those are painful. This is different. This is a particular experience of reaching the absolute boundary of one version of yourself and being asked by something inside you that is older and wiser than your conscious mind to cross it. Most people, when they reach this boundary, do not cross it. They find a way to turn back. They make a compromise. They construct a slightly modified version of their existing life that keeps them just far enough from the edge to feel safe. Jung did not judge this. He understood it completely. Crossing that boundary is terrifying because what lies on the other side is not visible. You cannot see it. You only know what you would have to leave behind to get there. If you chose a Valknut today, your unconscious is telling you that you are standing at one of those thresholds right now. Something in your life, a relationship, an identity, a story you've been telling yourself about who you are and what is possible for you, has reached its end. You can feel it. You have probably been feeling it for some time. And the part of you that resists it is not weak. It is not wrong. It is the deeply human instinct to preserve what is known. But Jung would ask you something he asked his patients when they stood at the same place. The self that you are afraid of losing, is it the self you actually want to keep? Or is it the self you constructed at a point in your life when you did not yet know what you know now? The Valknut is not a symbol of destruction. It is a symbol of transition. The three triangles are interlocked because what ends and what begins are not separate. They are the same knot, seen from different angles. Odin did not hang on the world tree because it was easy. He hung there because it was the only way to find what he was looking for. And he found it. If you chose the Hunabku, the Mayans did not believe in balance the way we tend to use that word today. When we say balance, we usually mean stillness, things in equal measure, not too much of anything, everything level and calm. The Mayan understanding of balance was almost the opposite of this. For them, balance was not the absence of motion. Balance was a correct relationship between forces that were always moving. Jung called this the transcendent function, and he considered it the highest capacity of the human psyche. Most people, when they encounter two things inside themselves that appear to be contradictory, feel compelled to choose, to be this and not that, strong or vulnerable, ambitious or content, certain or open, committed or free. The pressure to resolve contradiction, to simplify the self into something legible, is one of the most powerful forces a human being experiences. The people who are drawn to the Hunabku are people who have never quite been able to do this, not because they lack conviction, but because they contain something that cannot be simplified without being destroyed. They can hold enormous ambition and deep peace at the same time. They can love someone completely and know, also completely, that the relationship cannot continue. They can feel grief and gratitude simultaneously, and mean both of them with equal sincerity. The world, which prefers legibility, has probably found this confusing. You have probably, at various points, been accused of being contradictory, inconsistent, as if the presence of multiple truths inside you were evidence of weakness rather than depth. Jung would say something completely different. He would say that the capacity to hold opposing truths without collapsing into one of them is not confusion. It is the most sophisticated form of psychological maturity that exists. The mind symbol does not flatten its two shapes into one. It holds them in motion, each becoming the other at their shared edge, neither destroying the other, both necessary for the whole to exist. If you chose the Hunabku today, your unconscious is asking you to stop apologizing for your complexity. The balance you are seeking is not less of you. It is all of you in correct relationship with itself. If you chose the Hamsa, Jung was fascinated by the hand as a psychological symbol. He noted that in nearly every human culture, the hand appears in sacred contexts not primarily as an instrument of action, not as something that takes or builds or fights, but as something that offers, that gives, that holds. The people who are drawn to the Hamsa are almost always people whose primary relationship with the world is one of care. They notice when someone in the room is struggling before that person has said a word. They give more than they receive, not out of obligation, but because giving is their native language. They have, quietly and without drama, been holding up the emotional architecture of their relationships for years, sometimes for their entire lives. Jung identified this as one of the most complex configurations of a human psyche, because the same capacity that makes these people so genuinely generous also makes them extraordinarily vulnerable to a particular kind of exhaustion, the exhaustion that comes not from doing too much, but from giving to others what they have never learned to give to themselves. He called this the unwatched watcher, the eye that sees everything and everyone, and has never once been turned inward, the hand that has protected everyone within its reach, and has never been used to protect itself. If you chose a hamster today, your unconscious is raising a question that may be one of the most important you have ever been asked. Not, who do you take care of? You already know the answer to that. The question is, who takes care of you? And the more uncomfortable version of that same question. Do you allow it? When care is offered to you, do you receive it? Or do you deflect it quickly, graciously, so naturally that the people around you may not even notice? Because somewhere along the way you decided, consciously or not, that your needs were not as real as theirs? Your unconscious did not choose a symbol to tell you to give less. It chose it to ask you to finally, honestly, receive more. If you chose a karoo, the silver fern frond in the moment before it opens is one of the most precise images of potential that exists in the natural world. Everything will become, its full height, its width, every branch, every texture, every particular shade of green, is already contained inside that tight curl. Nothing is missing. Nothing needs to be added. The frond does not need to be taught how to unfurl. It does not need to be fixed. It does not need to be pushed. It is simply in this moment, not yet open. Jung wrote about what he called the problem of becoming, the specific psychological suffering that comes not from damage, but from delay, the suffering of people who carry inside them something genuine and fully formed that has not yet found its expression in the world, not because it is not ready, but because the person carrying it is not yet certain that the world is ready to receive it. This is a particular and underrated form of suffering, because from the outside it is invisible. The person who chose a karoo does not appear to be in crisis. They appear to be fine. They are functioning. They are capable. They may even appear content. But in the quiet hours, in the space between what they say and what they feel, there is something that has been waiting, something that knows it is ready in a way that the rest of their life has not yet caught up to. The Maori did not see the unfurling fern as a metaphor for struggle, for pushing through resistance, for forcing open what is closed. They saw it as a metaphor for trust. The fern does not fight its own opening. It waits, curled and complete, until conditions are right. And then it opens, not because someone told it to, not because it finally overcame its fear, but because that is what was made to do and the time has come. If you chose a karoo today, your unconscious is telling you something that is difficult to hear if you have been waiting for a long time. What you've been holding inside, the work that matters to you, the version of yourself that feels most true, the life that you can see clearly in your mind but cannot quite explain to anyone else, is not delayed because it is incomplete. It is not waiting because something is wrong with you. It is not curled because it is afraid. It is curled because it is full. It is holding everything it needs. And what it is waiting for is not permission, not readiness, not the perfect conditions. What it is waiting for is a moment when you finally trust completely that the opening has already begun. Whatever symbol called to you today, I want to leave you with something that Carl Jung wrote late in his life. After decades of sitting with thousands of human beings in their most honest and most vulnerable moments, he said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who you were told to be, not who your circumstances shaped you into, not who you became in order to survive, but who you actually are at the deepest level, in the most honest center of yourself, where none of the noise from the outside world has ever been able to reach. The symbol you chose today did not create something new inside you. It recognized something that was already there, something ancient, something that belongs not just to you, but to every human being who has ever stood exactly where you're standing, facing exactly what you are facing, and felt the same pull towards something they could not yet fully name. Jung spent his entire life trying to build a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, between the person you show the world and the person who lives in the depth below that. The symbol you chose today is a stone in that bridge. Just one stone. But bridges are built one stone at a time. And the fact that you are here, that you trusted your instinct, that you let yourself be reached by something ancient and honest and true, means a bridge is already further along than you knew. Keep building it. The other side is worth reaching.